I think part of the problem here is that, from my point of view, I feel like the woman's life carries greater value than the life of the fetus. She is already established, she already has a life, she's already got her hopes, her dreams, her aspirations, and if her circumstances, she decides that this is not the right time nor place, then getting rid of the products of pregnancy in the earlier stages is not a problem. Okay. It just is not a problem.
So, but what about, no one's talking about, okay, so we're going to look at it from that standpoint. What about the number of women who suffer from depression and suicide and grief because of the loss?
So that's a very small minority.
No, it's not.
The vast majority of women, in social sciences research, the vast majority of women feel relief. They feel relief.
That may be true, but if we're gonna be honest about it, we can't just say, well, that's a small percentage when we go look it up, and there are a vast number of women who are suffering in silence.
So they need to not be suffering in silence, okay? So they need to get counseling, but you also have to admit that a lot of women who do give birth suffer from postpartum depression as well.
And so that's what we're looking at, but we don't have postpartum depression from an it. It has to be something that causes grief. So we're looking at it, we're looking at this for life. We're looking at the value of life. We're not looking at the value of just what we consider cells. We're looking at life and how it affects every aspect of life. From your life decisions, from the choice of having sex, from everything is about life. And what we're doing is determining what is valuable and what is invaluable.
Right, and so it's along every spectrum. It's an area of shades of gray, and you have starting from the point at which conception occurs, all the way to the point at which a baby is born. Everything in between are shades of gray. So as you go later into the pregnancy, I'll tell you how. There are very different ways that women react to abortions throughout that period. There are women who are very determined not to have a child right now and will generally terminate the pregnancy very early, and it's not a problem. As it gets later and maybe fetal abnormalities are discovered, or if it's determined very late in the pregnancy that the birth of this child is going to kill this woman, those women react very differently. They react very differently. A lot of women want to have their babies, and they can't, because it's either going to die or suffer horribly before it dies, or else it's going to kill them in the process of coming into this world.
And that's a tragedy on both ends.
It totally is.
Like, we're not saying that's awful. Like, but again, that's the difference between late stage and early stage.
And here's another thing we have. We spending time, think about it, we are spending time putting value on life.
I don't believe in a black or white world. I think it is along spectrums of gray.
Okay, but we're spending time, think about it, of valuing life. But in a human race, in history, we always have that same problem. If you're rich and you're poor, you value the rich life and their dreams more than someone who's poor. Based on the color of your skin or your background, they value your life based off these things. That's our human problem. Is that we want to value life. We want to be the judge and the jury of life.
Yeah, so
correct.
Kind of like let's see. I don't have it in my notes here, but like kind of like the Crusades in Christianity, where you were basically given access to heaven as long as you went out and killed Muslims, right?
No, that's what happened in the Crusades.
That is exactly what happened in the Crusades. That was a papal decree.
You also, what you have is that they're trying to take over a certain land of Muslims. Have you read about the Quran? Who you asked about the Muslims? I gotta ask you the question. You know about the Quran?
I'm very familiar with it.
What is the
Quran? Can I go back?
May I finish? I'm listening. I promise. Okay. But I want to answer.
I'm going to make a note.
Because you asked that question. Do you know the Quran tells you to kill the Christians and Jews? You know that, don't you?
Oh, okay.
I got to ask you that question.
If we're going to get into that, the Bible, the Quran, they're all equally corrupt in that respect. Because they all say to kill in the name of the God that they believe in.
Well, that's not the case. But we have to...
Well, did you not read the Old Testament? Did you skip that
Have you read the New Testament? You skipped that one.
Huh. Okay, so all of a sudden... The Old Testament means nothing, right?
This is what we need to understand. This is one of our basic problems right here, but it's good. Okay.
I'm not even just trying to be sarcastic. I mean, just like, where's the line drawn? Because a lot of people pull from the Old Testament, especially when it comes
homosexuality
out of Leviticus.
That's in the New Testament too, in the book of Corinthians.
Okay, and that's just a letter that Paul wrote.
And then that's just a letter. If you say it's just as valid, the whole thing. I'm not picking and choosing.
Okay, so why doesn't it condemn slavery? Because it doesn't do that.
We're not going to cherry pick. Then we're going to say, well, you don't know the theme of the entire Bible. You have to understand the theme.
But you don't understand what I do understand about the Bible. So please don't make assumptions.
I accept that. I do accept that comment. Let me rephrase the comment. Is that you have to understand the theme of the whole entire Bible.
You know what? I actually want to interrupt at this point because I still want to ask the questions that I've got. I do want to get to this discussion.
Right. Okay, can we
and I just want to say,
next time?
yeah, that's fine. And if Lindsay wants to make a comment or question, you had a...
Well, I was just going to talk about the value of life.
Yes, ma'am.
Like, when a woman is talking about terminating a pregnancy, she may be, even if you call that determining value of life, it's only as it relates to things that are inside of her body, and you make these assumptions that she hasn't already thought about the science of what's happening, and she hasn't already thought about the repercussions of everything, and like you make the assumption that her decision is less valuable than your decision. And the whole point that I have on this is it has nothing to do with you. And there are people who believe that meat is murder just as sincerely as you believe that abortion is murder, but they're not trying to pass legislation that says that you have to eat tofu, like that you have to find some other option. The whole point is it's not your, like, you are denying a woman her personhood by telling her that you know the decision better than she does.
May I comment?
Please, it's on topic.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm glad we get back. Okay.
Yeah.
Based off that, what we are saying is that every single person, every person's thought is equally valid. What's called relativism. So we're saying is that if you think one way, you think another way, you think another way, you think another way, since we all think something, we're all different, then therefore they're equally valid and equally true. Therefore you have removed truth out of any aspect. And therefore, if you think one thing, and you think another thing, and you think another thing, you're saying they're all true, which kick out truth. Instead of truth being truth, and we all have to come into the truth.
Let's define truth.
One second, I forgot. So what we're saying is that, is there a standard of truth for the human race, or does the human race can live how they want to depending on where they come from, their background, their experience?
What I'm asking, what is your definition of truth?
Truth has to be established for the human race because we have so much stuff going on. We're so different.
So human beings establish truth?
Human being can establish truth because they're only based on their own experience. For example, if I live in a poor neighborhood and I see a particular thing going on, I establish truth based off this. If you live in the uppity, for example, the suburbs, right? And you see a particular thing, I say uppity for a reason. I'm sorry if I said that.
That's cool.
I'm so sorry.
That's cool.
But sometimes I'm kind of blunt, okay? I apologize. But if you live in that type of area, then what happens is you develop truth based off this. So truth has no standard. It's based on experiences. Well, experiences change. So that's what we're saying.
To me, what you're describing is perspective, which is not truth.
I agree. Perspective is not truth, nor is relativism. So therefore, in order to have like a company has to have a standard of laws that everybody has to go and submit under. Everyone who comes in, they come into the company, they didn't bring nothing in, they didn't make the company, they didn't build the company. The company set the rules, and everyone comes into the company abides by the rules. And they do what they're supposed to do.
Okay. And different societies set up their own systems of government based on the same sort of thing. We have a system of laws. We have means by which to enforce them and to punish those or try to fix those who might try to break them. So basically, from what I understand, you're extrapolating this type of system that humans build in order to conduct themselves in large groups, and then saying God has a structure also. It's like projecting a very human thing onto a supreme being and saying this is the way that it's set up. Because we see it here, and all these different human constructs, it must also exist here with God. that's a very human perspective, and it's a logical way of thinking about things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. For me, truth is something that can be proven. Truth is something that has.
That's pretty good. That's very
Yeah,
good.
it can be proven. It's not just something that it's not just an opinion.
I agree.
Or a group of different opinions. What might be true for her is not the same as what's true for him, is not the same as what's true for me. That is a flaw in our perceptions.
That perspective.
Okay? People can witness the same thing and have very different experiences about it and come to certain truths, but that's not really truth.
Perspective.
That is a perspective.
I agree with that. It has to be proven. So if you believe something that is not proven, cannot be tested, you cannot believe it. Because it's not true, based on what you're saying. I agree. If you believe something that is not proven, cannot be tested, only a perspective, you must now say it is not true, based on what you say. And I agree. Do you not agree with that?
No, because
Okay,
I
so they
think you
disagree
can
right now.
believe something that you don't have proof in. That's faith.
So that's faith.
That's
Okay, so now she's saying.
But it's not. There are.
Okay,
Even
so for
according
faith.
to the dictionary, there are different definitions of faith, and I know where you're going with this because I watched I watched the Ray Comfort thing.
She said prove, you said faith.
No, I'm not. No, we're talking about two different things now. I think
Okay.
you were trying to say that.
I want you to say
I think you were saying that you have to say that something is not true just because you can't prove it. That's what you were just saying, right?
No,
Did I misunderstand?
Yes.
Okay.
She said that if it's not proven,
Sorry,
it's not
I
true.
must have
It could be
misunderstood.
different perspective, but perspective doesn't mean
But that's
it's
not what
true.
she said.
Yes, she
either.
did what she said.
She didn't say that just
You
because
said
it's not
faith.
proven, it's not true.
She said truth has to be proven. She specifically said about being proven. You can have different perspectives. Doesn't mean it's true. But proof, she said, truth has to be proven.
Yes.
And you agree.
Yes.
So if you believe something that cannot be proven or tested,
What is that
means-
something? I want to see where you're going with this.
But I was just making a clarification of truth. That's what I'm trying to get. We'll go there. I have no problem. But you brought in faith. This is good.
No. I'm not trying to start a whole thing on faith. I'm just trying to separate. I'm trying to say that,
Okay. But do you agree with her then?
I agree that true.
Must be proven.
No.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
No.
Listen. This is good.
I believe that true is
True.
true. What
Does it have to be proven or not?
it can be proven.
Does it have to be?
Truth can be proven. It doesn't necessarily that it has been proven yet.
No, I said, does it have to be proven?
She just said it doesn't have to
Does it have
necessarily
to be
be proven yet.
Yes.
Yet.
Okay.
So it could be proven in the future. So for example,
okay.
there is a lot of evidence to suggest that the Big Bang is probably the best explanation for how the
That's a
universe
good one
came
to
into
talk
being.
about. Okay.
We don't have every bit of evidence available, and it might be because we're limited in our ability to understand things. But it doesn't mean that it's not necessarily true, simply because we don't have all the evidence available.
Okay. Now, based
Does
on
that kind of get at what you're
Yeah.
talking about?
this is a good one.
That's where I'm going with
Okay.
this. But I
That's
feel
good.
like I've heard these arguments before, and I'm afraid of how this conversation is going to play out.
Don't be afraid. It's a conversation. It's good.
But you
Wonderful.
cannot equate just faith in a science. Before we even get there, you cannot equate believing in a scientific theory with blind faith in like a God.
They are not the same.
I just want to establish that before we.
I don't have blind faith in the God.
No.
You said that. I don't have. Okay, here's the thing. Here's the biggest problem.
I need to stop talking.
No, you're doing wonderful, and you are too. Does it have to be proven? Do you believe in something? Do you believe in what you believe in because it's proven, or that you hoping that in the future it will be proven? Like the Big Bang Theory.
I think what I believe about certain things either have been proven or in the process of being proven. There is enough evidence that makes it convincing to me.
Okay, so I would like to. Okay, you.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sorry.
got,
I'll be respectful. I apologize.
No, you're fine. It does have to be evidence based. There does have to be some type.
I like how you go.
Okay. But repeat the question. I'm sorry one more time, just to make sure I was answering every aspect.
No problem. You want to repeat it? I'll repeat it.
Sorry, I
Do you believe in something? Does it have to be proven?
For you to believe.
For you to believe it.
For you to have conviction about it.
Does it have to be proven for you to believe in something?
Yeah. Yeah, there has to be some type of evidence.
Some type. Does it have to be okay?
But evidence has quality.
Right. Has to be quality evidence.
Yeah, because I mean the tobacco company. Just this is an example to make it.
No problem.
Tobacco companies in the 1960s, intentionally paid scientists to not find anything. That's not quality evidence.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's significant. That's good. I mean,
I like. Yes. Come on.
Okay, but I mean, I'm saying not all evidence is created equal.
Ooh, I like that.
Well,
That's good.
You can like that, but I don't think you're gonna like.
You.
Oh yeah, but you're probably ultimately not gonna like where it's going.
Maybe so, but go ahead, please. I like you though.
But I mean, eventually. So for now, I think I've answered your question.
Yes,
we're gonna get around to this at some point.
We still have to ask that part too about your belief when you believe something. Does it have to be proven?
No, it doesn't, but whenever, like I was saying, truth may not be proven yet, but you can look at evidence and you have to establish the quality for the evidence. But the point that I was trying to make was that my evaluation of that evidence and my belief in it is no more valuable than yours. And so if I want to get an abortion, you're making a heavy assumption that your belief is more valuable than my belief. And
we're gonna go with the evidence to say which one hold the weight of evidence.
And I've determined that this holds more weight.
Okay.
But
would you agree that evidence has to hold more weight than feelings?
No.
Can my feelings outweigh the evidence?
No, what I'm saying is that everything that comes into our brains goes through the limbic system, which is the oldest part of the brain, which is where emotions are stored. Everything that we perceive in our whole lives runs through our emotions first. So we can't separate what we think about and what we experience from our emotions because they are such an integral part of who we are.
Exactly. But here's the question. Can evidence of something weigh more the evidence than your feelings?
This is where your brain comes into play, your prefrontal cortex, where you're able to make judgments and to look for reasonable arguments and logic and things like that. And so you make a judgment based on that. But it also involves your emotions. You cannot separate your emotions from that.
Can your emotion be tainted? And then take your judgment?
Tainted, what do you mean?
Like you had a bad experience with something, so that you had a bad experience with somebody who looked a certain way, so now all of a sudden you have a negative attitude towards them.
Sure.
So the emotions.
Well, I think we clearly see that. I mean, if we're talking about just like racism, blatantly,
Exactly.
right? Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's a very tangible
and that's what we're saying. Because of what we see and experience, if I have a bad experience with somebody, if you don't mind, can I use it for example?
You're gonna have to, I guess.
If I had a bad experience with somebody who looked like him, and now my emotions are hurt, so everybody who looked like you, I have a negative attitude toward them, and that's my truth. But it's faulty.
No, what it is basically it's a chemical reaction.
And it's
You're
flawed.
being triggered by an emotion that you experienced in the past.
I agree.
Okay? Does it affect the way that you think? Absolutely.
Yes. But it's not.
But does it have to be permanent?
I agree. It does. You're right. But what it is, it's not truth. But I think it's truth because of my experience. So I'm taking what I think is true and applying it to everyone else because of my experience. So my experience and emotion are flawed, and I'm holding it as truth and want to push it off on everybody who reminds me of that person. Let me give.
So how is this related to abortion?
Okay, how is it related to abortion? It's the same thing. If, let's say, you had a bad experience with a man, bad experience, then you kind of negative towards men. So now you say, I don't want to have this, so I think it's okay. The man hurt me, my emotions are riled up, and I think, you know what?
So are you suggesting that that is the experience of all women who need to have an abortion?
No, this is an example. That I can justify with my actions, regardless of evidence, because of my experience. Many people do that. They don't know technical nothing. They ain't scientific.
But there is evidence out there which says, for example, if you go ahead and allow a baby to come to fruition, well, you are in a bad relationship with somebody, it's going to be bad for everybody concerned. There is evidence for that, based on historical precedent.
And there's evidence of people coming out of bad situations because someone gave them hope.
Oh, sure.
And gave them love.
Sure.
And gave them grace. And gave them forgiveness. And began to speak.
So what does that got to do with a woman deciding to get an abortion?
But because here's the thing, you can choose to terminate or choose to give opportunity of hope and love and peace to someone they give to you.
Or maybe the termination actually gives you hope and love and the ability to live a life that is much more productive. Because that's a lot of times that is what happens.
And we believe and a lot of times we always think of self versus giving to someone else.
No, myself, because I can give you an example. I've had an abortion. I was in college when it happened. It happened about a year and 3 months before I was going to graduate. There was no way where I was at that time that I could have finished school, that I could have done anything except struggle with this baby, because the man was just a bed buddy to me. We were out having fun. Birth control failed, as it sometimes does. I was in no position economically, emotionally, in any way, shape, or form to give birth to a child. And I needed to finish my college. Now, am I being selfish? Or is it more like, if I finish college, that gives me the ability to go out and help all these other people? I have helped thousands of people throughout the years in my career. Thousands. And I would never have been able to do that if I had been forced to have a child and live in poverty and struggle.
So not only your quality of life, but the quality of life of thousands of other people
that I have affected
based on one action.
Exactly.
Based on one action. So now we justify this way. I scratch out your life. I can help you, but I can also at the same time scratch out other lives, little lives try to come in. So when you look at quality of life, you also have to look at the whole picture. Many times we look at self picture. We look at self. Self is number one, self is number two, and self is number three.
It's called a survival instinct, I think.
Survival animal instinct is to eat the prey. Eat that.
Well, that's part of survival, but there are other aspects of survival.
And so abortion is the same thing. How we look at it is you are devouring the weaker one.
No.
It's weaker and it's smaller because for self-survival. Self-survival.
You know, you could put it that way, but actually in the animal kingdom, you see evidence of animals eating their young when they know they cannot care for them. That's abortion in the animal world.
And look at what a human is doing. But a
human, we are stopping a pregnancy because we know we can't take care of it.
The animal knows a baby, but the human says not a baby.
We don't know what the animal thinks.
The animal knows it's a baby. The animal devours the child. Right?
What do you base that on?
Right.
Where do you get the animal's knowledge from? Like, how did you come to that conclusion?
So
you think the animal thinks.
So you see the animal licking the baby and stuff like taking care of it, but we find out
unless they turn around and eat it.
And they find out it can't survive, then it eats it. Correct. So it ignites, and the animal had baby. The animal knows the process. They know how to get food. Correct. The animal knows these things. They know how to go.
Most of them do, but some of them make lousy parents, kind of like humans.
They know because you're a lousy parent doesn't give you the right to kill someone weaker than you. Your abilities doesn't give the justification to dismantle or say I'm gonna push you aside for myself.
I think it does. I think it absolutely does.
So
this is my life. I'm an autonomous human being. Okay, my life is already established. I have hopes and dreams and aspirations that I want to work toward that ultimately are going to help a whole bunch of other people.
So I could devour other people weaker than me. So
one pregnancy. Terminated one pregnancy.
It's not.
It's not like I'm doing this over and over and over and over again.
I agree.
And most women don't do it over and over and over
But
again.
then you support to build up others to do likewise. So if one person...
Absolutely. If that's going to make their life better
if-
and they can ultimately help other people,
A lot of
it
people-
becomes a chain reaction that explodes and blossoms out. It becomes exponential.
Exactly.
Okay?
So,
I stopped one thing in my life from coming to term, and that allowed me to blossom into the individual that I am now, and I have helped, like I said, thousands of people. That would not have happened.
and most of the time, we
I would have
don't...
brought misery to myself and to this child.
Most
And how do you justify that?
But most of the time, we don't believe in things like forgiveness because we don't experience it. You can't give that which you have not received. So if someone doesn't give forgiveness to another person, it's hard for us to give forgiveness.
What does that have to do with the decision that was made in order to better my life that would allow me to better other people's lives?
Okay, betterment is based on your terminology of betterment.
I think the vast majority of people I've worked with would say that I have helped them.
And-
I think we would be in agreement.
Well, that was... We were just reading this. If I took the Bible this time, I would say it says, every man proclaim their own personal goodness. Every man think their own way is right. It says every way of a man is right in his own eyes. So what we're looking at, while we're talking, you're telling me in my eyes, good. In my eyes, right. In my eyes, help. In my eyes. Everything that has come out is only been saying, and you actually confirm in the book of Proverbs, actually when it says this about it. And this was written a long time ago, way before Christ's birth. But everything it's saying, I'm saying it's good because it's my own ways and my viewpoint. Well, you had just confirmed the Bible, and it said, but there's a way that appears to be right. There's a way that appears to be right, but the end is not right. It's wrong, it's death. But it appears that way. So when we say these right here...
So the fact that I was helping all these people throughout my life and my career, that's all been bad and wrong and evil?
And this is what we're saying, is that we're trying to justify I'm going to say murder and say to help these, but at the same time promote you to kill these.
One.
No, help, so I say support, not do it no more. You say you stop, you say one.
I would have had another one though if it had come to that. If I had been in a situation where I can't care for that, that is the merciful thing to do.
And
Otherwise, it is absolute cruel. It's completely cruel.
That sounds like Morgan Sanger.
I'm not going to get into Morgan Sanger with
theology.
you, okay? Because
But
she's
like
been
her.
misquoted quite a lot. But
I
can
it sounds
tell
like
you-
her though. When I researched her, it sounded like her theology when she taught, when she formed it. So I was going to make that statement. It sounds like her thinking when it came down to babies. He said people who are not going to be good parents, or people who are poverty, and certain classifications you put people in, didn't deserve to have babies. It sounds like her. I'm going to say it that way. It sounds very, very, very similar to her way of thinking.
I would not say that just because everybody might be in my situation would make the same decision. That is their right. People who are living in extreme poverty, if they want to have babies, that is their right. But if they decide that they don't want to have babies, that is also their right. That is my feeling on
And I feel sorry for the baby because the baby cannot defend itself.
The baby doesn't even know any different. The baby that was developing in my womb, that was aborted at, I believe it was about 9 weeks, knew nothing.
My name is Dr. Anthony Levatino. I'm a practicing obstetrician gynecologist, and I performed over 1,200 abortions. Today I'm going to describe a first trimester medical abortion. This is a procedure in which the mother swallows pills in order to terminate her baby, and it is performed up to the 10th week of pregnancy. The procedure involves 2 steps. Step 1. At the abortion clinic or doctor's office, the woman takes pills which contain mifepristone, also called RU46. RU46 blocks the action of a hormone called progesterone. Progesterone is naturally produced in the mother's body to stabilize the lining of the uterus. When RU46 blocks progesterone, the lining of the mother's uterus breaks down, cutting off blood and nourishment to the baby, who then dies inside the mother's womb. It is important to note that even after it has been taken, it is possible to reverse the effects of RU46 and save the baby if progesterone is administered. The sooner, the better. Step 2. 24 to 48 hours after taking RU46, the woman takes misoprostol, also called Cytotec, that is administered either orally or vaginally. RU46 and misoprostol together cause severe cramping, contractions, and often heavy bleeding to force the dead baby out of the woman's uterus. The process can be very intense and painful, and the bleeding and contractions can last from a few hours to several days. While she could lose her baby anytime and anywhere during this process, the woman will often sit on a toilet as she prepares to expel the child, which she will then flush. She may even see her dead baby within the pregnancy sac. At 9 weeks, for example, the baby will be almost an inch long, and if she looks carefully, she might be able to count the fingers and toes. After she has disposed of her baby, the woman may have bleeding and spotting for several weeks. Bleeding lasts, on average, 9 to 16 days. 8% of women bleed more than 30 days, and 1% require hospitalization because of heavy bleeding. The failure rate increases as the pregnancy progresses. If failure occurs, she will usually be offered a surgical abortion. For the mother, medical abortion often causes abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, headache, and heavy bleeding. Maternal deaths have occurred, most frequently due to infection and undiagnosed ectopic pregnancy. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm Dr. Anthony Levatino, and in the early part of my career as an OBGYN, I performed over 1,200 abortions. One day, after completing one of those abortions, I looked at the remains of a preborn child whose life I had ended, and all I could see was someone's son or daughter. I came to realize that killing a baby at any stage of pregnancy for any reason is wrong. I want you to know today, no matter where you're at or what you've done, you can change. Make a decision today to protect the preborn. Thank you for your time.
I will no longer do any more abortions. When you finally figure out that killing a baby that big for money is wrong, that it doesn't take you too long to figure out it doesn't matter if the baby is this big or this big or this big or maybe even this big, it's all the same. And I haven't done any since then, and I never will.
No consciousness, no sensory perception whatsoever.
Barely
Nothing.
neuronal
And
too.
what happened to
Barely.
what about an elderly person who's in the hospital and they're in an unconscious state where they don't know nothing? Can you just pull the plug and say forget you?
Well, I mean,
Depends on what their wishes were.
Or-
That's why
yeah,
I have
I
an
mean,
advance
they wouldn't-
notice.
they
I have an
wouldn't-
advance directive
Right,
saying,
they don't got
"Go
no
let
advance.
go."
No, they have no advance notice.
It's
and
up to the
nothing.
family
They
then.
can't make no decisions and stuff like that. I mean,
It's up to
is
the
it just?
family.
Is it just?
If the person has been declared brain dead, I think it really is up to the family to make that decision. You know, why would you continue on? I mean, this poor woman who had been brain dead for how many years? It seemed
Terry
like.
Chavo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Honestly, I think it's that in itself is a very selfish act. And that's not that person, because that person clearly doesn't have a choice. It's a selfish act on the family's part to sit there and basically keep a corpse alive. You
Because
know,
they can through science.
and you're wasting resources and potentially organs that could have been used to save someone else's life.
So what's that want
But
to do? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make a point from
Yes, sir.
from earlier.
Yes, sir.
Like the difference is like I think we're all on the same side of we want to protect and save human lives. Nobody wants to kill anyone, but the thing is, you know, a fetus is not a human. It's just not. I mean, by biological definition, any definition, it's not a human. So when you say, you know, this whole killing the weaker thing, I think that's. I mean, it's a disconnect we're probably not ever going to be able to bridge the gap on.
But,
Yeah, it's an empty argument.
before that, I have a question though. Are you open to new evidence about what you just said?
Well, I mean, if it's actual evidence
Right.
and not just rhetoric.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. Are you open to evidence? I want to ask.
Well, see, that's the
are you-
thing.
well, I
If
just
there
wanna
is
ask-
evidence that is contrary to my current understanding of things,
Yes.
and that evidence is considered absolutely valid, then you bet I'll change my mind. And that's something different that fundamentalists typically won't do. They can
Okay.
be presented with all kinds of evidence to the contrary and still cling to their belief.
Because
even though it's
cognitive
wrong.
dissonance happens.
Well, they
Yeah.
pride
My-
themselves in it.